Sicily has always been more than an island. It has been a crossroads, a meeting place where continents lean toward one another, where histories collide and blend. For thousands of years, people arrived to settle, conquer, rebuild, and reinvent. Each culture left a chapter behind. The Greeks carved theaters into the hillsides. The Romans laid mosaics that still glimmer under the sun. The Arabs planted citrus groves that perfume the valleys, and the Normans crowned the island with cathedrals of stone. Nowhere else in Europe does the past remain this vivid. Civilizations layered one atop another, all visible at once. Empires rose and fell, walls crumbled, names faded. But compared to the forces that forged the island itself, even centuries of human history seem brief. Etna has been here far longer. Mount Etna, simply the mountain to locals, rises more than 3,300 meters. Europe's tallest and most restless volcano. For millennia, people watched its fire spill down the slopes and shape their myths around its glow. The Greeks imagined the forge of Hephaestus hidden beneath the summit. The Romans tied it to the underworld, and in their own way, they weren't wrong. Etna erupts in many forms: gentle ribbons of lava, glowing like molten rivers, or sudden bursts that send ash billowing miles into the sky. Villages on its slopes live with the knowledge that everything could disappear in a single night, and yet no one leaves. The volcanic ash feeds vineyards and orchards. In destruction, Etna also creates. Some of Sicily's finest wines grow from its blackened soil, and in its shadow stands Catania, a city shaped as much by Etna as by any empire. Founded by the Greeks nearly 2,700 years ago, it became a Roman town of theaters, roads, and ambitious architecture. Even now, between modern streets, the Greek amphitheater of Catania remains buried and immense, large enough to hold thousands. But Etna respects no chronology. In 1669, it erupted for 4 months, a relentless tide of lava rolling toward Catania. Only the city walls kept the flames from entering. Instead, the lava wrapped around Castello Ursino, a fortress that once stood on the shoreline but now sits inland, surrounded by solidified stone. Catania survived, only to be nearly destroyed again in 1693, when an earthquake swept through eastern Sicily and leveled the city. Most places would have vanished. Catania rebuilt itself. Under Spanish rule, an ambitious redesign began. Broad avenues replaced narrow alleys. Palaces rose again, this time in flowing Baroque curves. At the center of Piazza del Duomo stands the island's strangest symbol, a lava stone elephant carrying an Egyptian obelisk. No one truly knows where it came from. Some claim Roman hands carved it. Others imagine Phoenician origins. Whatever the truth, it became the emblem of the city, a reminder that Sicily is shaped as much by mystery as by history. But the earthquake of 1693 did not stop at Catania. It tore across an entire region, flattening towns and turning southeastern Sicily into ruins. From that devastation came something unexpected, a chance to design a new, unified vision. This broad region became known as Val di Noto, the valley where the Baroque age found its purest expression. Cities were not merely rebuilt, they were reimagined. Streets were laid out in perfect grids, open to light and wind. Piazzas were crowned with monumental churches that glowed in warm limestone, and among all these towns, Noto became the masterpiece. Houses in Noto shine gold at sunrise and sunset, giving the city a gentle, honeyed radiance. At its heart stands the Cathedral of San Niccolò, an elegant sweep of columns and pilasters rising toward twin bell towers. Construction began in the early 1700s, led by Baroque visionaries like Rosario Gagliardi. When the dome collapsed in 1996, the restoration that followed became a symbol of Noto's determination to preserve its identity. Facing the cathedral is Palazzo Ducezio, the town hall begun in 1746. Designed by Vincenzo Sinatra, a student of Gagliardi, its curved arcade softens the square, balancing the cathedral's vertical grandeur. The two buildings stand like partners in a long architectural conversation. But perhaps no place in the valley demonstrates the duality of destruction and rebirth more profoundly than Ragusa. It is, in truth, two cities, Ragusa Superiore. The upper city rebuilt after the earthquake with straight streets and modern order, and below it, clinging to the ridge, Ragusa Ibla, the old heart rebuilt upon ancient foundations. Ibla's crown is the Cathedral of San Giorgio, another triumph of Gagliardi's design. Built in the early 1700s, it rises from a towering staircase that lifts the cathedral above the piazza like a ship's bow. Its dome, added in the 19th century, dominates the skyline. The earthquake split Ragusa, but San Giorgio gave Ibla purpose again. Around it, streets revived, palaces reopened, and life returned to the slopes. Another Baroque gem, Modica, doesn't spread outward. It climbs. Houses stack against the cliffs, connected by stairways that rise like ribbons of stone. And as Ragusa has San Giorgio, Modica answers with its own. The Cathedral of San Giorgio, Modica, a Baroque giant whose facade rises in tiers of columns and curves. It stands on 250 steps that lift the cathedral into the light, each step deepening the sense of ascent. Above the town looms Castello dei Conti, once a fortress of power. Much of it now lies in ruin, but its presence still defines the skyline. On a tower once used for watching enemies, the clock tower of Modica ticks on, its gears and counterweights still working, just as they have since 1725. A reminder that even in a land shaped by fire, earthquakes, and centuries of conquest, some rhythms endure. To the north, the landscape rises again, pulling the story upward toward Taormina, a town suspended between mountains and sea. If Catania grew in the shadow of Etna, Taormina seems to live above it, a balcony overlooking the Ionian horizon. For centuries, travelers have climbed to this hilltop for the view. But the ancients came here first. Carved into the cliffs is the Greek theatre of Taormina, a vast semicircle of stone that has felt 2,000 years of sunlight. Its seats rise in perfect arcs, framing a stage that opens not onto walls, but onto the sky, Etna towering to one side, the Ionian Sea shimmering to the other. Even now, it is not a relic frozen in time. In summer, the theatre awakens. Opera, orchestras, modern performances. The ancient stones still carry voices, still amplify sound as they did in the Hellenistic age. Yet Taormina's fame rests on more than antiquity. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as the Grand Tour swept Europe, aristocrats and writers came seeking romance, sunlight, and the dream of the Mediterranean. By the early 20th century, the town had become a luxury retreat, a place where artists found inspiration and travelers found escape. At its heart lies Piazza Aprile, a terrace floating between sky and sea. From here, rooftops spill downward toward the shore, and the Ionian stretches out in a soft blue haze. Below the cliffs sits Isola Bella, a tiny, immaculate island tethered to the mainland by a thread of sand. Once privately owned, now a protected reserve, it is the symbol of Taormina's delicate balance. Cultivated elegance set against untouched nature. But to understand the land that cradles Taormina, you must travel inland, a few kilometers away, where ancient lava flows once surged down Etna's flanks, molten rock collided with cold river water. The impact carved something extraordinary. The Alcantara Gorge. Black basalt walls rise in narrow corridors, streaked and ribbed like frozen waves. Some sections tower 40 meters high, others close in tightly, polished smooth by centuries of rushing water. The air inside is cooler, denser, sounds echo differently. Water, stone, footsteps, all layered like a natural cathedral. Through this chasm flows the Alcantara River, weaving between waterfalls and hidden pools, bending through dark corners and sudden bursts of light. Its name traces back to the Arab word Alcantara, the bridge, a memory of a Roman crossing long vanished. The river remains, carving its path through time, shaping the gorge just as cultures once shaped Sicily. And here, in these walls of volcanic stone and running water, the island reveals yet another truth. Sicily is not merely a place of history written in cities and cathedrals. It is a land continually rewritten by fire, by earth, by the quiet persistence of rivers. A landscape where nature and civilization have never stopped shaping each other. To the north of Taormina, the sea breaks into a chain of islands scattered like embers across the horizon. The Aeolian Islands, 7 volcanic sisters, born from the same restless earth that lifts Etna toward the sky. Each island is a different experiment in fire and time, shaped by the slow grind of tectonic plates, pushed upward by the African plate, slipping beneath the Eurasian, and cooled by the breath of the Mediterranean. Lipari, largest of the 7, tells the economic story of geology. For thousands of years, its obsidian, sharper than steel, traveled across the ancient world, traded by cultures that never knew the island's name. Later, its soft pumice carved its own global trade route, used everywhere from polishing marble to making toothpaste. Lipari sleeps now, but not peacefully. Fumaroles still hiss along its shores. A reminder that the system beneath remains alive. Just south rises Volcano, the island whose very name would come to define all volcanoes on Earth. Its landscape is dominated by the Grand Crater, a wide summit bowl rimmed with steam vents, where the ground breathes heat through cracks in the earth. In ancient myth, this was the forge of Hephaestus, the god of fire shaping weapons for the gods. Even today, sulfur burns the air, mud pots bubble, and the memory of the 1888 explosions lingers in the yellowed stone. And then comes Stromboli, the lighthouse of the Mediterranean. For over 2,000 years, it has erupted almost continuously, sending fountains of fire into the night sky every few minutes. Ancient sailors navigated by its glow. Now, boats gather offshore at dusk, watching sparks rise from the mountain and fall into the black water. A reminder that the Mediterranean has always been a sea lit by fire. Back on Sicily's northern shore, a colossal block of limestone rises suddenly from the sea, La Rocca of Cefalù, a headland so striking the Greeks named it simply the Head. At its base spreads Cefalù, a tapestry of red rooftops and medieval walls wrapped around a crescent of gold sand. From the water, it looks like a painting, but the heart of the town is stone. The Cathedral of Cefalù, built in 1131 when Roger II, the Norman king, survived a storm and made a vow to God. Twin towers rise like sentinels, and inside, Byzantine mosaics shimmer in candlelit gold. A Christ Pantocrator, watching from the apse with a gaze both stern and tender. If the Normans left their promise in Cefalù, in Palermo, they left their kingdom. The city has never been quiet. It was not designed to be. Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Normans, Spanish, each empire carved a chapter into Palermo's streets. The Palermo Cathedral shows all of them stacked like geological layers. Arab domes, Norman arches, Gothic spires, Baroque facades. And in the Palazzo dei Normanni, power still echoes. Inside it glows the Palatine Chapel, every wall shimmering with Byzantine mosaics. Gold scenes from the Old and New Testaments framed beneath Islamic muqarnas ceilings. Few places on Earth display such a seamless conversation between three civilizations. North of Palermo rises Monreal, where the Cathedral of Monreal crowns a hillside. Legends say the Virgin appeared to King William II in a dream, guiding him to build a church. He obeyed, and the result is overwhelming. 2 acres of golden mosaic telling the story of creation, prophets, and Christ Pantocrator. Light catches the gold in waves as if the entire interior were breathing. But Sicily's sacred story stretches deeper. Westward, among rolling hills, stands Segesta, a temple raised 2,400 years ago by the Elymians. Its Doric columns appear complete from afar. But the temple was never finished. No inner chamber, no roof. Perhaps it was a political gesture, perhaps interrupted by war with Selinunte, its Greek rival to the south. Climb higher up Monte Barbaro, and the theatre of Segesta opens to a sweeping view of hills and distant sea. A stage designed as much for the landscape as for drama. Further south spreads the archaeological giant of Selinunte, once one of the most powerful Greek colonies in Sicily. More than 30,000 people lived here, trading with Greece, Carthage, and the wider Mediterranean. Their ambition survives in stone. Temple E, restored to near form, stands tall, while the ruins of other temples lie collapsed around it, columns too massive to raise again without cranes. On the Acropolis of Selinunte, one can almost feel the tension of the city's history. In 409 BC, it fell to the Carthaginians, never to rise again. War and earthquakes finished what time began. Yet eastward rose another Greek colony that outlasted them all, Agrigento, founded by settlers from Gela. In antiquity, it was Akragas, the most beautiful city of mortals. As the poet Pindar wrote, the evidence still stands in the Valley of the Temples, a ridge lined with monumental sanctuaries. The Temple of Concordia is nearly perfect, one of the best preserved Doric temples in existence. Nearby, the Temple of Juno, scarred by fire, leans proudly into the wind. The Temple of Heracles, though only a handful of columns remain, still radiates strength. Carthage ravaged Akragas too. But enough survived to make this valley one of the world's greatest archaeological landscapes. In Sicily's center rises Piazza Armerina, a town rebuilt by Normans over earlier Arab foundations. Its cathedral commands the highest hill. But just outside the town lies the true treasure, Villa Romana del Casale. Buried by a landslide and forgotten for centuries, its rediscovery revealed the largest collection of Roman mosaics ever found. Hunters, athletes, mythic scenes, preserved in astonishing detail. A reminder that sometimes oblivion is a form of protection. From the valley below, Eris appears like a fortress in the clouds. This peak has been sacred to many. First, the Elymians, then the Greeks, who dedicated it to Aphrodite. When the old temple fell to time, the Normans built the Castle of Venus atop its stones. Nearby stands the Chiesa Madre, a Gothic church, watching over narrow medieval streets that twist like a maze of memory. Descending from Eris, the land flattens into shimmering mirrors, the saline of Trapani and Marsala. Seawater enters shallow basins, slowly evaporating under the sun, leaving behind mountains of salt as white as snow. Windmills, once vital to the process, turn now as quiet protectors of tradition. Salt has been harvested here for more than 2,000 years, a continuity older than most cities. Along the southern coast, near Relmonte, a white cliff rises like a frozen wave. Scala dei Turci, the stare of the Turks. Legend says Ottoman and Saracen ships sheltered beneath this natural ramp. Whether true or not, the name endured. The cliff, made of soft marl rather than limestone, has been carved by wind and rain into smooth terraces. On sunny days, its whiteness almost glows against the sea. To the northwest lies San Vito lo Capo, once little more than a fishing village nestled between sea and cliffs. At its side stands Mount Monaco, a rugged headland guarding the bay. For centuries, San Vito lived quietly until travelers discovered its rare stretch of soft sand. Tourism transformed it. But the village still carries the rhythm of waves and wind. Across the island, on the eastern coast, rises one of the Mediterranean's greatest cities. Syracuse, founded in 734 BC by colonists from Corinth. It soon rivaled Athens in power, philosophy, and science. Archimedes, its most famous son, changed the course of mathematics and engineering forever. At the heart of Syracuse is Ortygia, an island of narrow streets winding between ancient temples and Baroque palaces. In Piazza del Duomo, the Syracuse Cathedral stands as a miracle of layered history. Built over the Temple of Athena, its original Doric columns still form the walls of the church, hidden within stucco and arches. Few places show the continuity of sacred space so clearly. Just beyond Ortygia lies the Neapolis Archaeological Park. The Greek theatre of Syracuse, carved directly into the hillside, once held 15,000 spectators, a place where Aeschylus himself premiered plays. Nearby, the Roman amphitheatre offered a different spectacle: gladiators, power, empire. And then there is the ear of Dionysius, a limestone cave where a whisper becomes a roar. Legend says the tyrant Dionysius used it to eavesdrop on prisoners. True or not, the place holds a strange, listening silence. Throughout Sicily, the Mediterranean is never far. It carried Greeks and Phoenicians, Romans and Byzantines, Arabs and Normans, Spaniards and Ottomans, Carthaginians and countless traders. It shaped art, language, cuisine, religion. And in places like the Palatine Chapel, these worlds converge. Byzantine mosaics, Islamic woodwork, Norman architecture. Sicily is not a single culture. It is an archive of civilizations layered into one island. Sicily is imperfect, chaotic, unfinished in the most beautiful way. Every civilization that touched it left a mark, and none ever erased what came before. Temples rise beside cathedrals. Greek columns support Christian naves. Ancient theaters echo with modern voices. Volcanoes burn and rebuild. Stone crumbles and is carved again. Here, the centuries do not replace one another, they accumulate. And that layering, that glorious, impossible layering, is what makes Sicily unforgettable. It is not a place preserved in time. It is a place where time never stopped moving.